There's a couple of places, page 304 and 305, that show us how it is that we measure EC. Now, EC is electrical conductivity of the soil. And electrical conductivity of the soil tells us whether or not we have a higher amount of salts or a lower amount of salts in the soil. So you can think of electrical conductivity as initially, so in the lower right-hand side, we've got a what's called a saturated soil paste. That's one way we measure, but we have this meter here, and this meter, what it does is basically there's two electrodes that we place into the soil, and it could be on the end of a probe, but basically what we do is we measure how fast, we'll just make an electrical current here, how fast an electrical current passes from one electrode to another. If you have high salts in this area, so let's say we were just measuring water, for instance. Okay, we had our electrode in there. If you had high salts, the current would pass really fast. Okay, and if you had low salts, the current would pass really slow. Okay. So the faster the current passes, the higher the EC number, electrical conductivity. The lower it passes, the lower the EC number. Okay, so it gives us just a single reading. This would be a reading like we would have pH. In fact, there are pH/EC meters available. And it's much like that. You make a solution of some kind, or a soil. For EC, you make a paste, but it's like what we do with pH. We put a soil meter somehow in the soil. We have a lot of different ways we can do that. You put the soil meter in the soil, and it gives you back a number. With pH, it gives us back a number. With EC, it gives us back a number. The EC number tells us whether or not we're dealing with a soil that has a high amount of salts. Now, when we say salts, we're not only talking about sodium chloride. That's the most common of salts. But we have lots of other salts, potassium chloride and things like that, that are available in the soil as well, that can cause this thing to happen. So this is a real physical way of measuring. You'll see in this, this person, there's no intrusive measurement in this instance, and in this case, we've got what's called electromagnetic induction. Electromagnetic induction, and it basically can measure without intruding into the soil. Can measure the EC, okay, or some surrogate of EC. In this case, electromagnetic induction. So an electromagnetic field, basically. This is the EM38, which is a really common way of measuring EC. There's another one that I dealt with called Verus. And Verus is kind of a cart you pull behind your, it looks kind of like an implement, except instead of discs that turn the soil, you've just got these flat discs that go into the soil, and they are measuring the EC. They're doing exactly what this was doing over here, this probe is doing over here. So electromagnetic induction is related to EC. It isn't EC itself, but we know that it's related to EC, so we can have something measure the electromagnetic induction of the soil and get an EC number from that. But this is how we measure whether or not a soil is indeed salty or not.